Miss Purvi, you are there? Purvi Thangaraj?
Yeah, hello.
Yes. Yeah, please
Yeah, hi,
go.
good afternoon, everyone. I'd be like to begin by thanking.
Sorry, we are slightly running short of time. So
Yeah,
please, yeah.
I'll try to be quick.
Mm.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the organizers, IMPRI and Dr. Arjun Kumar for organizing this session and inviting me to be a part of this discussion with such a distinguished panel. And so I think a lot of the points that I would like to talk about have been addressed sort of here and there. I'll like to focus on the rural agri space since, of course, almost two-thirds of the population of India is rural, and within that, we know that the workforce population for agriculture is 46% in 23-4. And there is, as we've mentioned before, like I'm not going to go into the details of how much budget expenditures happened, what are the new programs that were increased, but I would just like to mention that this budget, there was an expectation for there to be some really bold reforms and like newer initiatives, but as we've talked about, there was nothing significantly increasing in terms of the budgetary allocations, nor was there a lot of new integrated sort of approaches that were announced as well, which we've also, which Professor Shekhar and others have also mentioned about. But moving on, so in terms of the rural agri space, the primary ministries or policies or schemes that are part of it would be, say, the obviously the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Animal Husbandry. Then we looked at a Ministry of Rural Development, food subsidy, and fertilizer subsidy, which I would, in my opinion, would consider to be the primary aspects within this agri-rural space. And it would be interesting to note that the allocation of, say, the all of these ministries and maybe just two-thirds of the food subsidy would account for 6.6 trillion of the 6.6 trillion trillion INR of the budget, which is 13% of the total budget of 50.6 trillion. But however, within this, we can see that there is a lot of skewed support. Say the budget of food subsidy and fertilizer subsidy individually are much higher than the Ministry of Agriculture's subsidy. And another thing that we talked about, that there is no integrated approach, that they're all part of the agriculture and the rural sector, but but they're all coming from different ministries, being taken, being done by different ministers and sectors, and they all have each of their own, assessment mechanism. So that it's not that they're all like us sitting in a room and discussing what really needs to be done, say, in terms of doubling farmers' income or increasing wage rate, which is in reality decreasing. Like real wage rate has decreased 0.03%. And so there is no, as to say, focused approach towards these things. And one of the biggest, most important things that, in my belief, for moving away from this would be towards focusing on rationalizing these subsidies first, because they are obviously larger in number. And though we say that multidimensional poverty has been reducing and has reduced, but we still continue to give food subsidy to the same number of people. And though it is a consumer subsidy, the cropping patterns of most states are influenced by the food subsidy. And like Dr. Guman had also mentioned, that particularly Punjab, Haryana, and have faced the brunt of these problems in terms of the natural resources. And despite and then they continue to have the highest number of procurement from those particular states. So there needs to be a way to look after their natural resources, but also try to meet the food and nutritional security that we're talking about, because primarily we are focusing on rice and wheat. Though there are newer programs that are there for pulses, vegetables that are being introduced, there is no as obviously it's just introduced now, so we don't also know what all will be included within them, how the mechanism of the procurement or any of those things for these particular new schemes function. And another thing and for in terms of fertilizer subsidy, the government announced PM Pranam, which was to include and if the states were reducing their consumption, that the fertilizer subsidy savings would be given, like 50% of that would be given to the states. Though it has been introduced a few years back, there has been nothing, no update on it. What are the states doing? Is there any decrease in the fertilizer consumption? What is happening is still a mystery. And what is the process for all of those things? Though they have mentioned how the money will be given to the states and for what purposes the states must be using them, but right as of now, there is no update on these particular things. Lastly, as Professor Devi also mentioned that R&D is important, and that say the returns to investment in agriculture research have higher marginal returns in comparison to say obviously fertilizer subsidy, power subsidy, education, roads, etc. There has been no increase in the budget for, I mean, marginal increase in the budget for agri R&D. Within agriculture R&D also, there is a clear skewed approach that the R&D expenditures are going primarily to the crop sector. Say within ICAR, there are majorly 8 divisions that they talk about: crop, horticulture, livestock, fisheries, NRM, agriculture, engineering, education, extension, and others. But within that also, the crop sector has the highest expenditure. But we've seen that the growth rate of each of these sectors individually, fisheries has the highest CAGR of 8.7%, followed by livestock, meat, condiments and spices, while cereals account and all crops account for only 2.1%. The share of R&D for crop sector is 26%. So in terms of the returns that they're getting is not or the value of output that they are providing from these sectors, from the crop sector, is not commensurate with the expenditure of R&D that is going towards the crop sector. And apart from just investing in R&D, there always has been focus on climate resilience and all the developing new varieties, new high yielding climate resilient varieties. But again, it is just research that is there in the lab. Only once those said varieties are brought to the land, given to farmers, there's capacity building, there's extension activity, there's education activities for those crops and the farming patterns that ICAR develops, or even all agriculture universities develop. There will be no clear impact that we can see of agriculture research. Ultimately, like we've heard, that natural resources are depleting, but also climate resilience and climate change impacts are going to be seen the most in the rural India, which are the most vulnerable to this. There has been a lot of studies and estimates that in terms of just natural resources that are being depleted, the hydrometeorological calamities like rainfall, floods, etc., have damaged India's cropped area, say approximately 33.9 million hectares, according to Ministry of Agriculture between 2015 to 16. And then, so there is a need to consider even climate resilience in the policies and the schemes that we're doing. And so again, even Ministry of Environment is a separate, ministry. So there needs to be, though there is NICRA for within the Ministry of Agriculture, there is no, dovetailing between all the ministries and all the departments that are particularly working towards, achieving the common goal. And yeah, apart from that, that within crop climate resilience, there are certain types of crops that are more vulnerable to climate change versus some other crops. According to SAS, it was reported that say in paddy there was 73% of the crops were farmers experienced a crop loss due to climate and other natural causes, while it may be quite less, say 34% for rapeseed and mustard. So there needs to be crop specific, district specific, agroclimatic zone specific R&D work that needs to be done. This obviously needs to be done with KVKs and SAUs, state agriculture universities that are there, working along with, of course, ICAR and under the bigger realm of the Ministry of Agriculture, of course. Yeah, with this, I'd like to conclude my thing.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a general saying that we are less prepared to face the consequences of climate change. And what you are highlighting is this budget has no provision for that as well, right? Anyway, bringing some new dimension to our discussion is always welcome. Now,